Hi guys, thanks for joining me today as I continue to work on my Dollhouse kit customization. Today I'm going to install the sign and the awning, and I'll also be trimming out the switch that I added in the last video. If you haven't already seen that video, I will link all of the previous videos in this project in the description box below, as well as links to the files and the supplies that I used. I found this drill gauge guide in a box of drafting tools that were given to me when my dad passed away last year. And it is the most useful little thing for making and measuring circles. So to make my switch cover, I grabbed a switch just like the one I installed in the last video and just started popping it through the holes in the guide. When I found one that it actually fit into completely, I took note of the size, which is engraved on the guide in both fractions of an inch and in millimeters, just to make it extra handy. Since the switch is rounded, I was also able to grab the height of the switch by doing the exact same thing. And then I measured the width with a ruler. Now, you can do all of this with just a ruler, but I sometimes have a hard time reading the tiny little markings on rulers, so this is just a no-fuss way to get those measurements. Okay, confession time. I get really weird about having perfect circles in my projects. If they're not cut perfectly, then they don't look realistic to me, so I have to have it just right. So I popped over to my computer and designed a file so that I could cut this switch cover out of mat board with my laser. I made the switch cover in two separate pieces because my switch doesn't actually sit flush with the floor, so the frame part lifts it up just enough to encase the whole switch plate. I'm making the file available for download, so you can use that as a template, or you can use my files with a cutting machine to cut out your switch cover, or do whatever else works for you. I couldn't decide what color to paint it, and in the end I chose the green trim color that is located throughout the project, but you could also paint it the color of the switch or match it to the flooring. While the paint was drying on the switch cover, I went ahead and moved onto the awning. The kit instructions have you gluing the fabric for the awning onto the paper template and then cutting and folding and gluing the whole thing to the side of the building. The problem I saw with that is if you display the coffee shop up on a high shelf, you're going to be able to see that paper template, and ew, no, that's not good. I decided to build an awning frame instead. I used wooden stir sticks, some small dowels to build the frame, and just used the paper template as a measuring guide. I was a little worried that the dowel wouldn't be a great gluing surface against the back of the building because it's round, so I added a stir stick on the back side of the awning frame to create a flat gluing surface. So while the glue is drying, I cut out the fabric from the temple. And a trick I use when I have to cut fabric using a paper template is to use removable glue dots to hold the pieces together. Those things are super sticky, but they also peel off of most surfaces without leaving any damage. I painted the awning frame green after the glue had completely set up, and while that was drying, I started on the sign for the coffee shop. The kit comes with 4 wood pieces for the sign and 2 pieces to trim out the front of the shop. It also comes with a paper sign for you to cut and glue into place. The sign provided, though, doesn't match my updated decor or the story that I'm actually planning on telling with my miniature. So it's going to join the wallpaper and the lights and go in the reject bin. I designed my own sign with a more fitting name in Photoshop, and if you're building along with me, that is also available for download in the description box below. Yeah, you read that right. Purgatory. Now, do you have any guesses where I might be going with this? Let me know in the comments what you think is going to happen in my little coffee shop. I cut the sign out and started gluing everything together. Now, a little warning, if you're using Fabri-Tac, which is my favorite glue to use in Dollhouse builds, or any other solvent-based glues in projects like this, The solvent in the glue will eat right through your paint. So try not to slide your pieces around when you're putting them into place. Otherwise, you're going to be touching up paint for all eternity. If you anticipate a lot of wiggling to get your pieces into position, use white glue instead. While the sign was drying, I moved back to assembling the awning. It may feel like I'm jumping around in this video a lot, but this is actually the best way to work on these little kits, by moving on to the next step while you're waiting for pieces to dry. You just save a lot of time that way. I needed to make sharp creases in the fabric so it would lay correctly on the awning frame and just be easier to glue down. So I pulled out my clover iron, which I actually forgot I even had until I found it recently, and ironed those creases into the fabric. This step is optional. I just did it to make my life a little easier. I need all the help I can get. Then I glued the fabric down with a little Fabri-Tac and folded everything into place. And I was right, ironing it did make it much easier. Now, finally, all of my pieces are dry, and it's time to start putting it all together. First, I glued the frame for the switch cover down, and then glued the switch plate right on top of it. Once I saw it in place, I kind of wished I had painted the top piece black so that it would have blended in a little bit better, but it's glued in now, and it doesn't bother me enough to rip it out and do it over. Next, I glued the trim pieces onto the front of the shop and installed the sign at the top of the building. Well, that happened. Guess I should have waited for the glue to dry before showing it off. I told you I'm not a patient person. Next is the awning, and I realized when I was gluing it on that I didn't add any side supports. So this may fall off at some point in the future. It's been 2 days since I glued it in though, and it's still holding, so it might be okay. But if it does fall off, I will be sure to tell you and show you how to fix it to prevent it from happening again. And now for the reveal. The switch looks so much better trimmed out with the switch cover. Even if I'm not in love with my color choice, it's better than the exposed edges that were there before. The awning looks great, even from a low vantage point, and I really love how the sign looks on the front of the building. Next week, I'm not going to be posting a video on Saturday, but I will be posting a very special video on the following Monday, where I'm going to be taking a break from the kit to do something super cool and fun. So be sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified when that video is available. And don't forget to like this video because my positive mental state is fueled by your interaction. So thanks for hanging out with me today, and stay sane.